Hello, brothers and sisters. As I continue going through Only Two Choices by Blair Adams, I find I may have to do more videos than normal. I'm going to try to keep them shorter, do them briefer, because it just seems like every 10 pages at the most, I find something else that just sets me off and I need to share. This one's going to be a little different, but let me just give you a general summary of what this part is, what it's about, problem, etc., before I go and I show you the one quote I want to focus on. This really discusses the temptations of Christ. Now, the first problem with this is he kind of removes the temptation side of it. He's very chaotic in how he talks about this. He starts off by making this claim that all three temptations are all about what he needs physically, which is completely ridiculous because the first one, yeah, but the others, no. And it's weird because it's like he slowly lets go of it. It's like he starts off with that, but then in the second temptation, he kind of twists it to try to make that fit. But then the third, he lets go of it and he never brings it up again. So it's really weird. But that's the way this works. He's very chaotic with it. Seems to almost contradict himself at points. But there's a couple things in this that really get me. Of course, you've got that thing with him doing what he did with Job, where he's trying to make it less a test of Job and more a test of God. And in the same way in this, which I'll explain in a minute, he does that again. That's one of the things that bugged me about this. But the big thing is something that you might not notice because that's not where your focus is, because that's not what this is about. And that's what I want to share. And it's something I've talked about before. But let me say right now, the reason I'm bringing this up, the reason I'm doing this video is because this is the teaching they hide best. This is the one they keep as indirect as possible. And it's the one that is the most heretical. It is the worst. So let me go and read for you the quote. He says this: Satan's, philosophy or strategy here would, of course, constitute a shift from trying to push Jesus to go backwards, from pulling him over on his face. It's as if he's tempting Christ to try to be more than God's given him to be. To do more than God's given him to do. Something Jesus, as a man, can take credit for, and that yet at the same time calls into question the completeness of his humanity. And what was Jesus' reply to this? Well, he resisted this subtle appeal to pride, neurotic insecurity, and faithlessness by simply saying to him, "It has been said, you shall not tempt the Lord your God." He refused to allow the power of God's love to be defined or framed by Satan's egotistical power of death. Note that last sentence. That's the thing where I'm making the connection with what he talks about with Job. Making this competition between power of God's love and power Satan has of death, which I don't like that. Not necessarily false all the time. There can be disagreements, different ways of looking at it. The problem is, you can say he does because he's the one who brought sin into the world, so thus he brought death into the world. However, I would say he does not have the power. It is God's judgment. It is not his. So I don't like that. But the real problem is, he once again is making this a competition between Satan and God, or with what he's talking about, I should say, the Father. That's not what he means, but that's the best way to put it for those who are of the same view I am. When really, this is about Satan testing Jesus. That's what temptation is. These wouldn't be the temptations of Christ if he wasn't testing Christ. He's not testing God's love. He's testing Jesus' resistance of sin. So once again, he's focusing this wrong, just as with Job. So everything he does in this is just for the wrong goal, and like I said, very chaotic. But I think within that, he shows something here that you wouldn't see unless you are willing to stop and look at what it's saying without focusing in on the topic at hand. So let me read part of this again. It's as if he's tempting Christ to try to be more than God's given him to be, to do more than God's given him to do. Something Jesus, as a man, can take credit for, and yet at the same time calls into question the completeness of his humanity. This is very much coming out of the way they try to claim they believe he's 100% man, 100% God. However, as I've brought up at other times, other things I've discussed, written, etc., when they say this, as you go on reading and you really look at it, they don't teach 100% man, 100% God. They teach physically he's 100% a man, but God is 100% in him, which is not what that teaching is. So that's untrue, and this is where that starts to create an issue for him. But note all of this, he's talking about God giving to Jesus. They don't believe in the Trinity. And you've got to remember that when you're reading their stuff. Because when he says this, he's talking about God and Jesus differently. If they're different and you don't believe the Trinity, you're saying Jesus is not fully God. For those of you who may not have watched much of my other stuff, to let you know, in case you've been on their website, they bring up that whole thing of the economic Trinity. Note two things. They never explain what that means. Two, they never use that phrase anywhere else I've looked, any other book I've read. The only place they ever use it is their most public explanation of their teachings. That's it. It's about their reputation, nothing of their teaching. So, they do believe in oneness. They do not believe the Trinity. As I've shown in other videos, you can go back and look. There are places where they talk about that as though it's completely unbiblical to teach the Trinity. So when you consider that, and then you look at this, you see they do not see Jesus as God. They are not truly Christian. Because that's what Christianity is about. God coming and paying the price. And like I said, it's what they hide best. Like right here, he doesn't say it directly. But when you put their beliefs alongside what he's saying here, it doesn't work with claiming Jesus is God. It doesn't fit. And I'll bring this up time and time again, as I said, because this is their biggest error. This is what makes their claims to be Christian false. This is what they hide best. So I hope with each time I show more of this, anybody out there who's watching who still has their doubts, that this can push you further and further toward understanding they do deny who he truly is. I hope that helps clarify it better. Again, if I see it again and I see more clarity brought in, I'll share it again. And I'll keep going through this book. I'll keep showing you stuff as it comes up that I see as important, very, very significant. But I'm going to try to get through this as quick as I can because I want to get on to that other book that friend Zach, as I showed, he claims to be such an important book. That I have. I have received that, and so now I hope to get to that soon. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'll go into that. We'll see what it really says. Hope you guys have a good weekend. God bless.